Hi, this is Mike Halloran, and I teach canoeing, camping, climbing at Eden Prairie High School. In fact, this term I have three classes, hours 1, 2, and 3. This presentation is for parents who have a son or daughter in one of my classes or a son or daughter in Mrs. Reynolds' class, which is also third hour. So we've got a trip that we offer these kids. We've got 4 classes that potentially could go on this trip. And we'll be going to the Trails End Campground on the Gunflint Trail. It's all the way to the end. The only dates we can do this trip are Friday, May 17th through Monday, May 20th, because we have Mother's Day the weekend before and prom, and then we have Memorial Day the weekend after. So this is our wheelhouse to do this. It's just too cold to go anytime sooner. So hopefully you'll get some information out of here and can help make your decision on whether or not you want your daughter to participate or your son or daughter to participate in this trip. It's a pretty fun opportunity. This picture of me and Mrs. Reynolds on our backpacking trip last fall. We've done a lot of these trips together. She's awesome to work with. Does a great job preparing her kids for these trips, and it's been a very successful experience. This is me with some of my kids a couple years ago. A lot of these kids have never gone camping before, never fished. They had a great time. It rained pretty much the entire weekend we were there, and they still managed to stay dry, stay warm, and also catch some fish. So they had a great time. So that's kind of what the class is all about: helping kids be successful in the outdoors, no matter what the weather throws at us. So our destination is going to be right up by the Canadian border. If you've ever been there before, you know the Gunflint Trail runs out of Grand Marais. So we'll stop in Duluth, and we'll head to Grand Marais, and then we'll head up the 60 miles or so to on the Gunflint Trail to the very end. This next slide kind of shows you some pictures this shows you a shot of the Gunflint Trail. It's just a 2-lane paved highway. Or road, you probably could just say, not really a highway, but it winds all the way through the Superior National Forest and kind of gets up close to the boundary waters here. So this is a shot looking at Gunflint Lake, so we're getting a little closer to the border here. So here's where it is in Grand Marais. It starts and just heads straight up and winds through. Great scenery, great wildlife viewing. We go all the way to the end. That's where our campground is. So our campground is called the Trails End Campground. They have all kinds of things up here, bears included. So we didn't see any the last 2 years we were up here, but I know there are some around. So obviously we take every precaution not to invite bears into our campground. But the Gunflint Trail comes in here. You got to turn right. This is our outfitter over here. And then we go all the way down here and turn into these sites. And so I've got all these reserved for our kids. So each group is going to have their own campsite, and they're going to kind of plan their trip within their group. And then each group will have a chaperone assigned to them, and they'll be on the water with that chaperone all the time. They kind of plan their itinerary. So this area is technically not in the boundary waters. It is basically, just outside the boundary waters. It's going to be our base camp. And then we'll take day trips into the boundary waters. So I'll show you a map of that in just a second. But Friday, the day we leave, it's going to be an early start, 6:30 a.m. We'll load the buses on the east side. Kids will load their coolers, their gear, everything that they pack for the trip. And we'll be taking 2 school buses as well as 2 trailers on the back, a trailer on the back of each bus. So I'll drive one of the buses to help save some money for this trip. And we'll load it up and we'll head out about 7 o'clock, stop for bathroom near Duluth, and then probably stop for lunch around Grand Marais area. And then we'll head to the campsites and campground by 3 o'clock and try to get set up for the night. So hopefully we have some decent weather. This big map here kind of shows the outline of the Superior National Forest, kind of where it meets the boundary waters. So anything over on this side is the boundary waters. So our campsite's going to be right here. So the kids have options. They can canoe. Most of the kids will canoe down in Seagull, and it's fairly well protected by a bunch of islands around here, so you can always find some decent canoe water. So they'll kind of plan where they want to go. Some kids will want to fish. Some kids will want to stop at these different islands where the campsites are and maybe eat lunch or do a little hiking. The bigger islands offer some hiking opportunities. Some kids may want to portage over to a different lake and go fishing. We went up to Grandpa Lake last year and caught some northerns. That was kind of a fun trip. And then some kids may want to canoe north here on the Seagull River, where the largest walleye in the state was caught. This is not open to fishing right now because they spawn late. And so this is all closed. They can go all the way out here and fish on the outskirts, but we kind of try to keep them in a little tighter where it doesn't, the chance of wind doesn't impact their canoeing. So, but most of them will go down here. So it's pretty scenic area. So these are some pictures from down at the Seagull Lake area. Very rustic, no cabins. Probably won't even see any other canoes except for people in our group. You can kind of see off in the distance. This is Palisades. This is a big rock you can climb up and get great views. And this site over here was scorched by fire a few years ago, so you're seeing the regrowth. It's pretty cool to see that. This is a shot from our campground looking out towards Seagull Lake. So we have to canoe this channel and then get through a little narrow area. This is our outfitter up the hill here where they have all the canoes and they have showers and they have a little store. If kids forget something, it's pretty expensive up here. So we're going to encourage kids to kind of pack everything they need rather than having to buy things up here. Daily activities, big thing is going to be canoeing. That's why we're going up here, so they can experience the Boundary Waters. While they're canoeing, they can climb Palisades Peak, do a lot of fishing while they're up there, hike, and then we'll get a little volleyball going back at the base camp, which is always a big hit. So this is one of my kids. We caught a lake trout a couple years ago, kind of by accident. It was kind of fun, but so you can catch lake trout up here, smallmouth bass. We got northern right there. This is a big smallmouth that was caught a couple years ago too. Some really nice fish can be caught. It's pretty cool. Adult chaperones, we try to have a mixture of adult chaperones from teachers to former students to parents. So I like to go with about a 1-to-6 ratio. So chaperones will be with their group at all times on the water, will wear life jackets at all times on the water. They will never leave their chaperone site. So they stay together and leave together, plan their trip together, their daily itinerary, and so that's always the case. And when we're back at the base camp, the chaperones are always around. The kids always know where we're at. We check in on them quite a bit, and obviously check in with them when we go to bed at night and stuff. Make sure they're in the right tent and everybody's accounted for. So the biggest rules that we have to make sure we share with parents and guardians is about using chemicals. We do a lot of vetting before the kids go on this trip. Anybody that's had a previous violation is not eligible to go. Anybody that does not demonstrate good decision making in class or good attendance will not be allowed to go on the trip either. So it's kind of a privilege and something you've got to earn. So with that said, anybody that uses chemicals on this trip would need to be sent home immediately. So we would call parents. We would also call the police because the police have to issue a citation. And the expectation is that the parent would drive up as soon as possible and pick up their son or daughter. And so if that is not able to take place in a reasonable amount of time, then we have to offer the custody over to the police. So the police would hold your son or daughter until you arrive. So that's been our policy. We haven't had any issues in a number of years, but probably about 10 years ago, there were some bad decisions made and some really serious consequences handed out. So we've got to make sure we state that to all the kids and parents, and so you know what the expectation is. So I think we've got a great group of kids. My 3 classes, I'm not worried about anybody that's expressed interest in the trip. So I think it'll be just fine. We just got to make sure we're very upfront with our consequences. So we'll be getting back, to parents with more rules about the trip and more specifics. There's going to be one of the forms that students and parents are going to need to sign, so you can look over all the rules that we have, and we can answer any questions too. So we want kids to try to bring as much of the equipment as they can. So within their group, they're going to plan their tent, sleeping bags, full rain suit. I mean, everything, all their personal and group items. So they're going to plan their food. They're going to plan everything they need to cook that food with. So they're going to try to bring pots and pans. If there's anything that they don't have that they need, they can definitely let me or Mrs. Reynolds know. We don't want them using your best cookware, over a fire or anything like that. So we've got some things that they can use. It's just a lot easier for us logistically to have kids bring as much of this stuff as they can. I'm going to send an equipment list home for parents, and so will Mrs. Reynolds, and a food planning list, so you can kind of see the list of things that kids are going to need, as well as meals they can plan for. We're going to provide stoves and fuel, So camp stoves and fuel will be provided, and firewood. So there's no need to bring any machetes or axes or hatchets or anything like that. Anyways, they should let us know as soon as possible if there's something they're sure they don't have and they need for this trip. So we do a lot of prep in class. Again, right here, the knife safety, we cover that because kids can bring knives up here. And so we go over that, and the knives just can't be very big, and they can never bring them into school. So when we're loading the bus and stuff like that, it's all got to stay out there in their equipment and things like that. So, but we do quite a bit in here. We do meal planning. We do, dishes, outdoor, dishwashing. I mean, we try to cover everything so the kids know exactly what to do on the trip. So our itinerary for the day we come home is going to be an early wake up, load everything up, and just start heading south. So we want to try to get back to Eden Prairie by 3 o'clock or so. Usually we pull in right after the buses take off on the east side. Then we unload everything and try to make sure everybody gets everything they brought on the trip. The deadline is going to be about 2 weeks before, which is Friday, May 3rd, and that's going to be the medical, the rules and permission forms. So there's 3 forms that are going to be due, as well as the payment, $125. That can be made out to Eden Prairie High School, EPHS, whatever works. And if anybody has an issue with the amount that's due here, the $125, we've got some resources that we can tap into. So you can let me or Mrs. Reynolds know if you'd like us to do that for you, and that's not a problem. And if anybody needs an extension, as far as, you're not sure if your son or daughter can go on this trip because they have, something that might come up, like True Team State track tournament or meet or whatever, that's fine. We can just kind of tentatively plan on them coming. And if they're able to come, then we can get the forms and the payment, when we know for sure they're coming. So if there's any questions about that, you can let either of us know, okay? For my classes, you can email me right there, my email address below, and then Mrs. Reynolds, same thing. So there's no limit on the number of questions you can ask. I know a lot of this information doesn't always make it home to the parents and guardians. So feel free to email as many times as you want. We'd be happy to answer any questions, and hopefully you'll get some information from your son or daughter. And we'll certainly stay in touch as we get closer to the dates of this trip. Thanks for watching. Take care.